they do some dumb stuff on the road.
Yep.
If you drive a Tesla, I'm not sorry. I think you're a bad driver. Hello there. Welcome to the CyberDudes news, or CyberDudes podcast news, up to 2nd of December 2024. I am Robin Thornton. He is Omar Sangarima. And let's kick this off with, how are you doing, Omar?
Doing good, recovering after Thanksgiving. More psychic damage for any of my D&D friends. Yeah. So, but I'm here. How about you?
Yeah, all right. I think over the course of 5 days, I spent 26 hours driving, up and down the East Coast. So that was great. But
gig economy? No, but seeing friends, right, or going to family, right?
Yeah,
traveling.
Good. Going to see family, but one-shotting it across 5 or 6 states in between on Tuesday and on Saturday. Quite hefty.
Man of extremes, as always. This guy.
But throw it in cruise control and just run with it. The only thing that suffers is the lower back. I don't have a Tesla, so no, I don't read mid or watch Netflix mid drive.
Terrifies me still. I'll never get. I'm part of that generation that won't get used to that. If I look over and I see somebody it's always gonna terrify me. Like it just, I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I don't know. I think I've said this. I said this to you before. I think having an Elon mobile encourages you to be a worse driver.
Sure. Yep.
Because they do some dumb stuff on the road.
Yep.
If you drive a Tesla, I'm not sorry. I think you're a bad driver.
It just fits with the Tesla drivers I know personally in my life. It fits to a T. And you know who I'm talking about. So yeah.
Oh, hey. Anyway, should we get into the news? Lovely. Right, very quickly start off with CrowdStrike have been doing quite well on their financials recently. Last Tuesday raised annual forecast on steady cybersecurity demand, which shows that none of this is going away anytime soon. I have a related story myself for that in our spotlight section. Elsewhere, we have a story from the Register. The only thing worse than being fired is scammers fooling you into thinking you are fired. This is the news that scam purveyors have started using emails inferring that people have lost their job in order to get info stealers and other associated malware onto their machines. Naturally, very panicky kind of news to hear that you may have lost your job. So once again, I think the advice of take a beat is always salient advice for that kind of thing. Don't just go clicking straight away based on alarming news. We've also got, from The Verge, the Federal Trade Commission changes its telemarketing rules to cover growing tech support scam calls. Consumers will be protected if they were the ones who initiated the call to a tech support scammer. Lovely bit of, I think, performative change to practices there from the Federal Trade Commission, but based on the number of scam calls that I get, even if I'm going to be the one calling them, they're still going to be pretty crap at actually shutting the bastards down. So, actually shut them down in the first place, FTC, and then go about broadening the scope of your rules, maybe.
I have no
What do you
hope.
think?
I have
no
hope.
I don't either.
Yeah, none.
And then final one from the BBC, nuclear body opens cybersecurity hub. This is the news that Sellafield nuclear plant in Cumbria in the northwest of the UK or northwest of England has opened up a new cybersecurity hub to protect their operations, which is a bloody good job because you really do not want the containment of spent nuclear fuel becoming any kind of a problem. I mean, it's a ripe target.
I'm just. Did I hear correctly? I have some hearing difficulties, but you say they started it recently?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, better late than never, but it's 2024. Really?
Yeah, that's my comment on that story. I mean, good on them, but started, updated. I take revamped. Like say, throw me a bone.
I was gonna say before that little piece there. I mean, it's a podcast. Generally speaking, it happens if you're something more than speechless about this kind of news. But hey,
I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to point fingers because probably
you do.
We're as bad.
You do.
But I know for a fact that on this side of the pond, it's as bad, if not worse. Folks have been for critical infrastructure, OT type setups. It's difficult. I get it. A lot of water treatment plants are held together by bubblegum and prayer. But starting a cyber like that's something that hey, we probably should get in front of it. This internet is here to stay. I think this newfangled these computers are not going away like we thought they would.
I mean to be okay. So here's the thing. To be fair, and actually going back to last week's episode when we were talking about potential impacts to CISA based on the incoming administration and the fact that Jenny Easterly was resigned. CISA was only set up 6 years ago, and to be fair, and this is going to be a rare thing or a rare piece of credit that I am going to give the former and incoming administration, is that they did actually set up CISA. So also bearing in mind what we discussed last week as well about, oh, well, they might dismantle it. I actually, now that I think about it, it's like, maybe that, I don't know why you would do that, set up an agency and then completely dismantle it 6 to 7 years later, but I don't know. We'll see. It's anyone's guess.
Efficiency, man. Efficiency. Government efficiency.
What, building it all and then taking it apart again?
Listen,
the epitome of efficiency.
I got into a weight cutting competition when I was like 20 with one of my friends who didn't believe the amounts that you could cut when I wrestled in high school. So what do you think I did? I ate my face off for the prior 2 weeks before the day that we were going to start the recording, and then I lost it all. So I could see playing the long game.
The Christian Bale approach to metabolic experiments.
100%, and that's a nice way to say it. I'm going to use that rather than just fucking up your body. I'll call it a metabolic experiment. That's any drug use, any drinking. It's a metabolic experiment. Let's go.
You might, actually, that's a point with the doping agencies. You might have to be very, very clear about what you mean by metabolic experiment.
Listen, as long as I don't play tennis, right? It's all fun. It's all fine. So.
Fair enough. Right, we've deviated somewhat from cyber matters. For spotlight reasons, what have you got for us today, Omar?
Well, this is a drum we've been beating for many episodes, and spoiler, it's going to be one that we beat forever because this stuff's not going away. But
poor drum, it gets such a beating.
It really does, right? As if it was made to take one, I guess. But AI-powered fake news campaign targets Western support for Ukraine and U.S. elections, and an absolute shocker to fucking no one. But the thing that I think gets me, that really finally promoted this one to, hey, Robin, this is the one I want to spend some time on, was the visual. And I will say this, we'll drop it in the show notes. You can take a peek at this thing. But whenever I see a flow diagram with more than 3 boxes for any piece of what's going on, I'm both terrified and annoyed at the same time, right? Because then it takes me a little bit more brain power to go, okay, hold on, I got to follow all these bouncing dots and arrows and whatnot. But come on.
I will say that this is an absolute dream compared to any diagram that I've ever seen that relates to scaled agile application development.
I will 100%.
Which, for those of you who know what that is, I mean, you will understand this straight away. If you are not familiar with scaled agile application development, count yourselves lucky. It's gross, and we'll leave it there.
I mean, whoever did the front end for that website was an evil genius, and emphasis on the evil, just like the concatenating circles of hell and drudgery, right? Dante wrote that output for the scaled agile folks. But this thing is, at least, is not nearly as Byzantine as that, thank goodness, to your point. But what I love is once you dive in, you'll see that this is only a mere component of a grander sort of program. And that's really my takeaway and my point that I want to hammer home today. Mm-hmm. These things are not done in a vacuum. They're done programmatically, systematically, and they're on people's, hey, this is what I want to get done in 2025 for my job type reports. There's folks in agencies, in other governments that go, this is what we're going to roll out. And it's a major component of that hybrid warfare that we've brought up prior. And it's not lackadaisical. It's not done ad hoc. It's done in a programmatic way. And there's, to dip in slightly to the program manager and me here, there's probably key performance indicators. They probably track metrics in terms of success. And they tweak their approaches to hit higher numbers. It's bad.
I think really what's quite scary. I think what's quite funny about this is actually, I mean, for anybody who works in kind of like an office environment, and if you've ever, I mean, it's not even if you've ever, you will have had times where you're thinking, Christ, aren't we really overcooking this? Are we really having another meeting about this? Like, and you realize the amount of work that goes into, sometimes unnecessarily over the top amount of work that goes into certain initiatives. But I feel like I could say with a reasonable amount of confidence, there is probably hackers and online propagandists who have the same thoughts, where they go, Jesus, I thought we'd already landed on this and had this discussion. Why are we having another meeting? Why has Sergey invited me to yet another workshop with no agenda? Like, what do you need me for this for?
That death by PowerPoint extends into the gray and black market activities.
Why is Vasily hijacking yet another meeting? Will the guy never shut up?
He's really on about his TPS reports, and he won't shut up. Like, this guy just won't let this dead horse die. But for me, it's just how interwoven the entire arena of disinformation is. They'll flow into talking shit about the Ukraine again, who benefits, and you can track that down. Then it'll go into, let's disrupt U.S. confidence in the U.S. electoral process. Then who knows? And it's not something that'll go away. It's something that spikes, of course, around these big flagship moments like the election that we just had. But this is a part of an overall bigger plan to undermine both the soft and the hard power of the United States as a country and institution. And it's done to a degree of sophistication that you just can't wave away as, oh, that's hacker stuff and it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect my day-to-day. This is specifically a systematized way to have that internet logical sort of arena have an effect on your day-to-day. It's that bridge, and it's done in a purposeful way that, again, I think it was the scope, the scale, and the sophistication that really blew me away and said, I have to bring this on our talk today.
Reading through this article again, it makes me kind of wonder what the thought process is of the people who support Russia over Ukraine with regards to this invasion. Now, I know there's certain people, like, not so much outward support of Russia in the United States, although there are some people, and quite frankly, those people need their heads checking. But there are plenty of people who are very apathetic about Ukraine on the grounds that, well, why are we sending all of this aid to them? And that's a concern that they have. I don't think it's a particularly valid one, because you back your friends, but that's a concern that they have, and they're entitled to have that concern. Those people, however, that are overtly, people are entitled to people are entitled to whatever opinion they want. It doesn't mean that other people have to validate it, appreciate it, or listen to it. But the people who are not Russian, who are overtly pro-Russian with regards to a global superpower invading one of its neighbors, and like, this is exactly I feel like this is exactly the kind of thing. Either they are a tool of this framework, they are a component of this framework in order to try and get people to follow that line of thinking on the grounds of groupthink, or they are people who are following that line of thinking on the grounds of groupthink, and they have absolutely no understanding of why it is that they think that way. And I think that's genuinely the only explanation that I can come up with for people who are pro-Russian with regards to this conflict. Literally, that they are just following thoughts and opinions that they have seen online. Either that, or resisting what they consider to be a bizarre sort of new world order kind of thing that's being peddled by NATO and the West.
There's a lot of pieces of that, because there's otherwise people that I respect, on many other grounds, that when we start across the Thanksgiving table, we start devolving into these types of discussions. I just on its face, one country changing the lines on the map in 2024, as incredulous as my face got for, hey, we're starting a cyber program to cover this nuclear shit, maybe that's a good idea. The incredulity gets dialed up to a 15 when it's, hey, let's change how the map looks, and it's through a completely non-democratic process. Don't get me wrong, there's still some places colonialism has divided with neat lines that are still trying to figure shit out. Completely different conversation, but which is a part of the conversation that was fed as part of the misinformation campaign, right? Oh, we're liberating this area of Ukraine because it has very deep pro-Russian sympathies. Again, but you don't liberate it through tanks. You let them have a referendum. You let them vote. You have it be a legitimate sort of process. And if they want to secede, that's a whole different can of corn. I don't want to have to be checking non-credible defense on Reddit to see what the latest ridiculousness is going on, because there's an actual hot land conflict in a major arena in 2024. Call me an idealist, but shit, haven't we figured out that this just doesn't end well for all parties involved? For God's sakes, do it the classy way and try to starve them out, right? Like, but please, like, do things, like, don't be rolling things. That's crazy to me, and that's what gets me fired up, and I have to leave the dessert table mid dessert.
Well, final thought here, and then we'll move on to actually a slightly adjacent story. But I find it very funny how in the space of 33 years we've gone from yay, the Berlin Wall has fallen, and then followed swiftly by the collapse of the Soviet Union, and all of these various territories can be self-deterministic, etc., 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 to, oh, Russia's entitled to have its land back. Like, what? No, it was never Russia's in the first place, because it was with the Russian Federation. I was going to say the Russian Federation is a different country anyway. And if you're going to say, like, oh, well, they're entitled to have their land back, it's like, yeah, but you're talking about the Soviets now, and they're gone. Unless you want the Soviet Union back, in which case, fine, but just be honest about it.
Exactly. If you're a Command and Conquer fan, then let's have a different conversation.
Yes, definitely. I'm not advocating for that when I say definitely. I'll be very, very clear about that. Our final story from the record, or recorded future news. UK minister criticised over hyperbolic speech on Russia's cyber capabilities. So this is British government is being criticised for a speech at the NATO Cyber Defence Conference in London on Monday, which would be last Monday, I think, when a senior minister claimed with a cyber attack, Russia can turn off the lights for millions of people. So this was by an MP called Pat McFadden, and it was described as ridiculous by Kevin Reeler, who's a lecturer at Brunel University, London, and former counterintelligence analyst at the US government. It was also considered a step backwards by James Sullivan, who is the director of cyber research group at the think tank Royal United Services Institute. This is an opinion that was also shared by several other experts in the field. And I'm in two minds about this one, because on the one hand, Russia's cyber capabilities are, as we've just been discussing, very advanced and genuinely a serious threat. However, I do understand the criticism on the grounds that Pat McFadden, I think, has grossly simplified the capability of what they're able to do in positioning it that they have a big red button at GRU headquarters that says all of Britain's lights off now. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, is it not, Omar?
I was going to go the opposite direction. I only think it's ridiculous in that thinking that you need a big red button to take down a country's infrastructure like ours. I think all you need is a bad storm and somebody sneezing at the wrong location, and half the eastern seaboard is without power for a while. I will say.
What do you mean, like sending all FEMA support to Nashville instead of Asheville, for instance?
Why? Hey,
not saying that didn't happen. I'm just saying that it could have.
It's not beyond the pale as much as we'd want it to be. I completely agree with you. Frankly, you're still waiting for FEMA support in Puerto Rico. It just got rerouted to somewhere else. But you really, when you take a deeper look at how the stuff in our country, the backbone, the things that we don't think about because we just take for granted, like water, like light, like heat. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really take that much to take it out. Now, I agree where you can be of two minds. I get kind of where you're going, because I mean, aren't we past all this fear, uncertainty, and doubt? Right? We're post doubt, and we're a mature industry. Goddamn it! But in reality, though, I think that there's still kernels of truth in the warning, because of the fact that now that should be part of our threat modeling. That is on the table. China, of course, right? Another superpower that's engaged in online nefariousness, spends a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of brain power on how to just sit on a lot of our systems. Now, do I think it's like you said, you hit a big red button, like you have Tim Curry in a Command and Conquer cutscene to cut. I'm going full with the references here, but it's not quite like that. But I do think that folks are constantly working to make it that way, or that to make it at least within the calculus, to have that be part of what you do should the worst occur, should the unthinkable happen and we get into a hot conflict with any one of those two other major players. That's no longer, we're in an odd way, and you're more, I think, versed in this historically than I am, but in an odd way we're going back to total war. We're going back to those times when we're gonna hit civilian places, we're gonna burn crops, we're gonna figure out how to fuck with people's water supply if and when something happens where we're getting into an open conflict with one of these two players.
And I think that I think what you've hit there is probably more what Pat McFadden has missed here, and that the likes of James Sullivan and Kevin Reeler are pitching at, with regards to, this is not a hit the big red button and absolutely everything goes out Hollywood scenario, like what was it, Die Hard 4, where it's the fire sale and everything goes to hell, and we're blowing up gas distribution centers in the middle of Pennsylvania or whatever it may be. I think this is much more, I think what these guys are much more getting at in the detail of their criticism is that this is a death by 1,000 cuts sort of scenario. This is not a matter of let's cause hardship to tens of millions all in one go because they can't get access to water. This is a let's repeatedly and continually screw around with multiple different water supplies over an extended period of time, so the powers that be are constantly scrambling to fix it, and the people then start thinking that the government is orders of magnitude more incompetent than it already is. In a way, maybe sort of looking to try and trigger a French Revolution style situation, which in of itself might sound a little bit hyperbolic, but you give it enough time and it might not be completely out of the realms of possibility.
Robin, what happened with toilet paper during COVID? Right?
Well,
Nothing's
exactly.
beyond the realm of possibility anymore.
Yeah.
It didn't make any fucking sense why that went why toilet paper of all things. But hey, did it inspire me to get a bidet? Goddamn right it did. I don't play no toilet paper games anymore.
Do you know what really? I think that's probably the peak of stupid, irrational, people aren't thinking sort of scenario, on the grounds that you fuckers not have washcloths.
Listen,
like, why did people lose their minds over toilet paper? Use a washcloth and just wash the damn thing.
Well, that would involve that we actually, go back to washing things in this country versus throwing them away. But it really, I think for me, and there are many lessons to learn from a situation like that in our industry. But I think the one that's going to stay with me and probably still be something that is in my mind like 20 years hence, right? When I'm hopefully still giving cyber advice, right? I haven't moved on to sell hot dog or some shit. But I'm going to go that irrational can't be discounted. It still can be something that is a legitimate response, and legitimate in the sense that it actually can happen and it is happening and that it needs to be dealt with. Not legitimate like, hey, that makes sense to happen. You always have to have that part of your calculus that allows for random weird shit like that to occur, and because it will have downstream effects on how you can bounce back from any major event, right? That's part of the BCDR calculus, I think, forevermore. At least it will be in my head. I think for you too, right? We've lived an event sort of the same way like the Depression made people do weird stuff, and that generation just never got over some of the saving habits, some of the spending habits, some of the consumer habits, as you mentioned. That stuff stays with the generation. I think for us, we're always going to remember, man, things got super weird during COVID when the external pressures were a little too much. That's going to be something that's always, hey, you can't discount that. Oh, that's stupid. That wouldn't happen. Really?
Well, I mean, I don't even
TP.
Yeah, and it's like, actually, to an extent, I don't think you necessarily even need I don't think you necessarily even need a sort of freakish kind of society forming or changing event to do that. Because remember, it was pre-COVID that we had an entire cohort of young people eating Tide Pods, and that was a dumb thing that people couldn't get their head around.
Remember Tickle Me Elmo? Right? Or any like Christmas season's coming, right? And every Christmas season you see, I think, a microcosm of this type of hysteria where people just get stuck on, hey, that's the thing. Let's go grab that. And so I think that probably should have alerted us a little earlier to the fact that, the herd mentality can go sideways, and it can get fixated on odd things. And it can, in the consumer sense, yes, of course, okay, the toy and whatnot, and I'm not above that, right? If something gets hot and my kid wants it, I'm gonna, stab people to go grab it. But that's the sort of weird sea changes that can occur on a dime, seemingly, that can have real downstream effects and real world effects on what happens afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. rounding this out then. So I'd say I think that there's a quote actually I wanted to throw in a little earlier on this one, but this is the guy. This is James Sullivan from the RUSI. Said here, so similar to disinformation, the impact from cyber incidents over the last decade has been much more gradual and insidious. We must build collective resilience against those threats and never normalize them as part of modern life, which I think is, I agree with the sentiment, but I think it's hard not to have one of these things become feel like a part of a normal part of modern life. I would probably liken this a little bit more to, keeping yourself safe from a cold. Cold's a part of normal everyday life, but if somebody around you is coughing and spluttering, then you maybe kind of move away from them, take a bit of flu medicine to begin with, lessen the impact, and that's that. Move on like that. I think the other stuff that has rubbed people the wrong way with Pat McFadden's some comments here is so there's a quote here from Jamie McCall, also from the RUSI. The suggestion that Russia could turn the lights off for millions is not grounded in reality, and likely reflects a misunderstanding of the kinds of effects that offensive cyber operations can achieve, which kind of goes to what we've just been talking about. But the key one here is this kind of language also does Russia's job for it. Given Russian intelligence wants to create panic and weaken societal resilience through cyber operations, resisting Russian cyber attacks requires psychological as well as cyber resilience, and this rests on clear and calm rhetoric and guidance from the government. Such exaggerated rhetoric inadvertently bolsters Russia's image and perceived capabilities whilst unnecessarily spreading fears of a doomsday scenario. That was a supplementary quote from Louise Marie Hurrell, who's also at the RUSI. So they're all kind of singing from the same hymn sheet on this one. But this does really remind me of back when ISIS was a big thing. And I think all of the hyperbole around ISIS made it seem like maybe at most 100,000 insurgents sort of gallivanting across the Levant was sounding like an army of 5 million that was going to come in and ransack and pillage all of Western society, and hyping them up basically just did their job for them and got everybody kind of scared and on edge.
But they could shoot crossbows from Camelback, man. You can't discount that. Historically, we've seen what happens when folks can shoot arrows atop large mammals that go fast.
I thought that was the Berbers.
Oh, that was a complete Genghis Khan reference for sure. I was just saying,
Oh, that's the steppe. That's Asia. That's not the Levant.
No, I said mammals.
Well, if I'm going specifically off Age of Empires basis, that's that part of the world is war elephants and gunpowder.
That's true. Cataphracts. Oh no. Oh boy. Yep.
Oh yeah, the Byzantines, the cataphracts. Oh,
yes.
Very, very hard to deal with. Lots of trample damage. Halberdiers do nothing against them.
Pain in the ass.
These are references that will hit only a very, very small population of our listener base, I think. Okay, well, I think that's all we have for today. Anything else?
No, I think we covered a wide range, and I got to get some of my holiday bitterness out while talking, so I appreciate you.
Marvelous. Excellent. All right. Well, in that case, if you have enjoyed today's episode, then please do give us a like and a subscribe, and any comments that you may have about today's episode, please throw them in down below. We'd love to know what you think. Incidentally, our Bitcoin offer has up to a $20 bonus for sign-ups to Coinbase. So if you are interested in that, I would hazard. How can I actually really say this? Personally, I would not go jumping in with too many feet right now because that price is a little bit toppy. But if you want to do the sign up, then by all means, it takes one little trade to be able to redeem it. Yes. I don't know. I just don't want to get in trouble with the SEC or anyone.
I don't think we're at the level of the Jenners for pumping dump schemes. I think we're safe.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Actually, I was watching the Tom Brady roast the other day, and the amount of shit that he got for losing all that, like what, $20-30 million on was it FTX? That's just brutal. Although not as bad as all the ex-wife jokes that he was getting, because you could see at times that
I love those.
You could see at times that he was like, "This hurts. I really wish you'd stop doing the ex-wife jokes. It's not."
Think about it. What's he gonna do to the guy?
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Anyway, right. Okay. Well, we will see you again next week. I have no idea what we are going to be trotting out next week, Omar, unless you've got any particular machinations. But otherwise, we'll see you again in 7 days' time.
Sounds good.
All right. Until then, stay cyber safe.
Adios.
Ah.